कोई नहीं कर Welcome. We are initiating ourselves in a very blissful domain, Geeta Ganita Kshetra, mathematical domain of organization of the knowledge of Gita. Geeta Ganita Kshetra, mathematical domain of organization of knowledge of Gita is the applied values domain of Vedic mathematics. In the previous session, we have exposed ourselves to the fundamental prerequisites for initiation for this domain. We can recapitulate that our acquaintance with Devanagari alphabet is the first prerequisite. The second prerequisite is that we shall be well acquainted with the placement values of each and every letter of Devanagari alphabet. The third prerequisite is that we shall have proper comprehension of the parallel geometric formats for the placement values, TC values of the letters. Once we are acquainted with these three fundamental features, then we can have the text of Gita in our hands. But before that, the fourth prerequisite is going to be that we shall also be well acquainted with the text of Ganita Sutras. The text of Ganita Sutras and text of Gita is in Devanagari script. As Vedas have reached us in Devanagari script, as such, acquaintance with Devanagari script, placement values of the individual letters, parallel geometric formats, and the text of Ganita Sutras make quadruple fundamental features prerequisite for initiation for this domain. Gita is a divine discourse at the battlefield. It is the Yudh Kshetra Rekha, the battle line around which the Kauravas and Pandavas have positioned themselves, and it is that very moment, just a moment before those armies have blown their crowns, sunk, indicating that the war begins. Gita is the divine discourse in the battlefield. It is at the battle line. It is a moment before the warriors sound their conches sunk and indicate that yes, now war begins. So it is just a moment before the war begins. And another feature, the very blissful feature, which we must keep in mind is that this discourse is re-narrated by Sanjay to Dhritarashtra at Hastinapur, away from the battlefield. Battlefield is Kurukshetra. This divine discourse was narrated by Sanjay, the charioteer of Dhritarashtra, to Dhritarashtra in Hastinapur. And this narration is on the 10th day. So it is on the 10th day of the war that this discourse was re-narrated by Sanjay to Dhritarashtra. The war has been of 18 days. The discourse is of 18 chapters. The text of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, knowledge and enlightenment, has been organized as 18 distinct disciplines of yoga. Now it is on the 10th day of the war when Bhishma, the commander-in-chief of the Kauravas, had fallen. He had a fall on the 10th day. All first 10 days, the army of the Kaurva was under the command of Bhishma. This text of Srimad Bhagavad Gita is part of a bigger scripture, Mahabhartam. This scripture is in the Bhisham Parva. Bhisham Parva is the 6th Parva of the 18 Parvas of Mahabhartam. The bigger scripture, Mahabhartam, is a scripture of 18 Parvas. Out of those 18 Parvas, this text of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the popular text of Srimad Bhagavad Gita of 700 shlokas, is part of the bigger scripture. It is in chapters 24 to 42 of Bhisham Parva, the 6th Parva of the Mahabhartam. All these features are very prominent features of the organization of knowledge. Mahabhartam is a scripture of 18 Parvas. Srimad Bhagavad Gita is a scripture of 18 disciplines of yoga. The Mahabharata war is of 18 days duration. This discourse was at the battlefield on the separating line, on one side of which was stationed the army of Kauravas under the command of Bhishma. On the other side was stationed the army of the Pandavas under the command of Bhim. Now, in this background, that this scripture, Gita, the popular Gita, is part of Mahabhartam. It is part of the 6th Parva. So value 6 has its prominence. Then the 10th day as well as value 10 also is of very great significance here in the organization of the knowledge. Value 18 and value 16, there are 16 Ganita Sutras. There are 18 disciplines of yoga. Values appear 18 and 16 are interrelated, interlocked along the format of 18 as a domain and 16 as a dimension. We can recapitulate that value 18 is the summation value of the quadruple folds of hypercube of 5, 3, 4, 5, 6. And value 16 is parallel with the value of the dimensional frame of quadruple spatial dimensions of a 4 space. So this organization as such, when is being taken up for the applied values of Ganita Sutras, then the well indicative initial feature is, and it is that the dimensional frame of 4 space of value 16, along which manifest the 16 sutras, and value 18, the summation value of 4 folds of hypercube 5, the representative regular body of a 5 space, are being now chased This chase is a chase of transcendence from the manifested creation. The manifested creation is of four folds. Creation is within a four space. Creator's space is a four space. Creator's space is presided by a Lord Brahma, a four-head Lord. And the transcendental domain is presided by the transcendental Lord Shiv. However, at the origin seat of the transcendental domain is the seat of a self-referral Lord Vishnu. Lord Krishna is incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Lord Krishna places himself at the origin seat of the transcendental Lord and gives enlightenment about the transcendental domain. As Lord Krishna, incarnation of Lord Vishnu, is having his seat at the origin of a transcendental domain, so he is fully equipped with for full knowledge of the transcendental domain. As such, we the sadhakas are fulfilled with the intensity of urge to be parallel with the Vedic systems shall take that here Srimad Bhagavad Gita enlightenment is all about transcendence from four-fold creation format of creators of space, four space, to five-fold transcendence ranges of the transcendental domain. Lord Krishna is incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is the presiding deity of a sixth space, and Lord Krishna, with his seat at the origin of a transcendental Lord, as such, is part of the transcendental domain, being at the seat at the origin, and simultaneously Lord Krishna is not part of the transcendental domain, as origin is of distinct features than that of the domain itself. So it is this dual status of the origin of the transcendental domain which is to be comprehended well at the outset to have proper appreciation of the organization of the text of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Now, today, we are taking another feature. The first feature in the previous session taken up by us is as that on the asking of Arjuna, Lord Krishna had placed chariot just on the battle line so that Arjuna can have a full view of the commanders and soldiers of both armies, particularly of the Kauravas, the opposite side. Now today, the feature which is going to be focused is that along the battle line, there are armies of Kauravas and Pandavas. Therefore, today we will be focusing upon this pair of formulations, namely Kaurva and Pandava. The formulation Kaurav and formulation Pandav are two distinct formulations. The TCV value of formulation Kaurav is 22, while the TC value of the formulation Pandav is 28. 22 plus 28 is 50. It is equal to the TC value of Geeta Ganita Kshetra. It is also is equal to the TC value of the formulation Yudh Kshetra Rekha. So the battlefield as such is the domain of the knowledge and enlightenment of the Gita. The separating line as well is just the cumulative value of armies placed on its both sides. So battle line as such is having no distinctiveness while the domain is being viewed on the whole, and the domain as such comes to be as is Kauravas and Pandavas having their placements just on opposite sides of the same battle line. Now the formulations Kaurava and Pandava are the basic source of formulations in terms of which we will be in a position to comprehend, glimpse, and imbibe the fundamental organization features of the text of Srimad Bhagavad Gita as per the mathematical values of Ganita Sutras. Here itself, it will be blissful to take note that it was on the 10th day when Bhishma had fallen, Sanjay started narrating this discourse which had taken place just a moment before the war had begun. So it is after 10 days that this narration is being re-expressed, re-narrated at Hastinapur. So the value 10 and value 1, the first day and the 10th day, the value 1 and value 10 have interlocked relationship. Firstly, the summation value of the double digits of value 10, 1 plus 0 is 1. Now, this will well indicate as that the Gita is being re-narrated from the very beginning, but on the 10th day. Therefore, Ganita Sutra 10 is the parallel key of Ganita of Gita chapter 1. So Gita chapter 1, Arjun Vishad Yog, and 10th Ganita Sutra Yavdunam, which means deficient. Here it also will be relevant to take note that the formulation Yavdunam, the complete text of 10th Sutra, is just a composition of 9 letters. There are 9 letters text for the 10th Sutra. So interrelationship of value 10 and 9 and the simple rendering for Yavdunam as deficient when will be changed further. It will help us appreciate as that the text of Ganita Sutra 1 is a scripture of 47 shlokas, while its Pushipika, the end fruit value, is of 48 aksharas. We will be coming to it. This is going to be a blissful mathematics application, and it is for it that we are initiating ourselves. But today, at this initial stage, we are concentrating upon the formulations Kaurava and Pandava. This set of pair of formulations are being glimpsed in the light of Geeta Ganita Kshetra. Geeta Ganita Kshetra triple words formulation leads to TC value 50. Kaurav and Pandav, two words composition as well leads us to value 50. Now, step ahead, value 22, the TC value of Kaurav is the summation value of the 4 folds of hypercube 6, 4, 5, 6, 7. And value 28, the TC value of the formulation Pandav, is having its split as 9 space content domain splitting as 9, 7, 7 and 5. Therefore, the formulation Kaurava is of the feature that it is parallel with the formulation setup of hypercube 6, while the formulation Pandav is of TC value 28, and it is of the features parallel with the 9 space content manifesting as a domain. So on the face of it, it gives us a distinctive view as to how the Kauravas are comprehending the existence phenomenon and are adopting hypercube 6, the representative regular body of a 6 space, while the Pandavas are comprehending, viewing, glimpsing, and proceeding by being parallel with the features of a 9 space domain manifesting as the domain fold. Therefore, the values 22 and value 28, which have a difference value 6, will help us appreciate as to how the battle line, which is separating the Kauravas and the Pandavas, is of value 6. And we know value 6 is a Surya Ank. It is a number of a sun. And sun is a 6 space phenomenon. 6 space is presided by Lord Vishnu. Lord Krishna is incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Therefore, at the battlefield, the Kauravas army under the command of Bhishma and the Pandavas army under the command of Bhim, as such, are also having Lord Krishna as well present. He is present as a non-fighter. He is not a soldier. He says that he will not take the arms in his hands. Therefore, here, this field organization is of value 22, the hypercube 6 format of the Kauravas, value 28, the organization format value of the Pandavas, and the sun 6, Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu, as well present there as a witness, as a separating line. Therefore, we shall have a proper appreciation as that 22 plus 6 is 28, while 28 plus 6 is 34, and 34 is the summation value of hypercube 9. So see, when Lord Krishna goes to the side of a Pandava, then the Pandava's format becomes of hypercube 9. However, the Kauravas, even if they are expecting that Lord Krishna will not be fighting and so he will be on their side, and they remain at phase and stage of the 9 space domain only. They don't become a 9 space body. Now, these distinguishing features are the initial distinguishing features which have to be appreciated, and these have to be glimpsed so that we can continue our initiation process. This initiation process shall be taken in 4 distinct aspects. First is, there is a dimensional space. It has a space content. The space content lump manifests as a domain fold of the bodies, as a volume of the bodies, as a hypervolume of the bodies, and all other connected features of a body. The next thing is the body itself, hypercube, a manifested creations. a creation where the space content as a domain accepts dimensional frame, the boundary frame, and all other restrictive conditioning for the space content playing its role. And the third thing is that this creation is going to be within a creator's space, that is within force space, that is within a spatial order space. As creators of space, force space is a spatial order space. As such here, two space is going to play the role of a dimension. As now two space, surface, is going to play a role of a dimension, therefore the pair of axes of two space itself will be manifesting a pair of distinct generic units. So single axis and the pair of axes both will be having their mathematics, will be having their contribution, will be having their attributes. And these attributes will be manifesting bodies of distinct features. So when both the dimensions are there, we call it a full unit. And when one of the two axes is playing the role, we say it is a half unit. So creator's space is having a pair of distinct generic units, full unit and a half unit. So full unit hypercubes and half unit hypercubes will be a pair of distinct sequential bodies. As such, while chasing the existence phenomenon of the manifested creations from where the transcendence is to take place, and the enlightenment of Srimad Bhagavad Gita is the enlightenment of a transcendence from the fourfold creation formats. Therefore, here the full unit bodies, hypercubes of full units, and half unit bodies, the hypercubes of half units, will simultaneously come into play. Once this pair of sequential manifestations are there, then naturally it will be playing a very, very classical role as that half as a working unit, half as a unit, half as a body. So full body, full unit body, half unit body. It will bring a fourth generic feature. So space content means domain, full unit bodies, half unit bodies, and specific characteristic of half dimensions. So these are the quadruple features. Here is a space content which is playing its role as a space content as a domain. It is playing as a role as a domain of a full unit body. It is playing a role as a domain of a half unit body. And it is also playing a role as half body, as a domain of a half body. Therefore, we have to have specific attention to D9 and H9, means 9 space content as a domain content, H9 as the full unit hypercube 9, and then small hn, to distinguish it from the capital H means a full unit and half unit, we will be having half unit hypercube n, and then we'll be having 9 and half. Now dn, d9 is of value 28, h9 is 34, small h9 is 35, and h9 and half is 37. It is this feature which in this organization, in this chase, will become the foundational quadruple values playing their role individually as well as collectively. So our chase of Geeta Ganita Kshetra, Yuddha Kshetra Rekha, Kaurav Pandav will be in terms of these quadruple setups. Now, these quadruple setups are to be appreciated with respect to 9 space, 8 space, 7 space, 6 space, 5 space, 4 space, 3 space, 2 space, and 1 space. Vedic systems are accepting basic numbers range 1 to 9. Parallel to it, the Sthapatya has hypercubes 1 to 9. There are full unit, there are half unit, and there are half body units. And these 36, 4 into 9, these 36 distinct entities together become the components. And it will be blissful to take note that the text of Ganita Sutras as well as of Ganita Upsutras, 16 sutras and 13 Upsutras, this entire text of 519 letters is in fact availing only 36 distinct letters. Now, how each letter will be having its distinct format will be our initial comprehension expectations for being parallel with the Vedic systems. Therefore, sadhakas shall sit comfortably and to reach at this tabulation of 36 distinct entities in terms of which the organization of Srimad Bhagavad Gita stands mathematized by the Ganita Sutras availing 36 distinct letters. A step ahead, it also will be a blissful to have further insight about the formulations Kaurva as well as Pandava. And this insight is to be parallel with the 10 distinct folds of the TCB values. The formulation Kaurva is having its 10 distinct TCB folds as is tabulated on the screen, serial number 1 to 10, then the features are there, and then the value and the total value, and the end reach value is 1182. We have to chase, we shall be chasing, we will be blissfully going parallel with each and every fold of this very formulation. And likewise, we also will be going parallel with the 10 folds of the formulation Pandav. And then we shall be having a comparative appreciation of each and every fold of the TC values of these formulations, and in terms thereof, we shall be appreciating, we shall be comprehending, we shall be imbibing, and we shall be having our mental state parallel with this phenomenon. But here for the present, we are just having a reference as that we have to enter the inner folds of these formulations in terms of the 10 folds of the TC values, and these folds will be bringing us face to face with the mathematical domains, the organization values, and other connected knowledge and enlightenment aspects. With it now, the central formulation which is to be appreciated and which is to be taken up for its appreciation, it is the formulation Krishna. Krishna is Gita. Gita is Krishna. The total knowledge, the total appreciation of all values lively as Gita are the divine values of formulation Krishna. Now, formulation Krishna is a formulation where it is having sequential folds. The letter Ka, the first consonant with the TC value 1, but Ka is Brahma, so it acquires value 4. Ka is Shiv, it acquires value 5. And then Ka is a Krishna, it acquires value 6. Therefore, these quadruple folding features of formulation Krishna will be bringing us face to face with 4 distinct phases and stages of unfoldment process of the formulation Krishna. And as we know, the TCV value is of 10 folds. So these quadruple phases and stages of the TC value will lead to 10 into 4 is equal to 40. This way, the formulation Krish, which is of TC value 19, distinguishes itself from the formulation Arjun, which also is of a TC value 19. The formulation Arjun will take us only to 1/4 of the whole phenomenon. The Lord Krishna will take us to all the 4/4 of the wholesome universal setup. As such, we, the sadhakas, the students of Vedic mathematics and science and technology, shall sequentially chase inner folds of formulation Krishna as Krishna, as Brahma, as Shiv, and as Vishnu. Once we will be parallel with these sequential features, then we will be appreciating as to how 9 space hypercube 9, which has 19 geometries range, and the value 19 as the TC value of the formulation Krishna on its split as is depicted will be of total value 68, which is equal to the TC value of a Panch Mahabhut. So entire existence of phenomenon is the phenomenon of the domain of D19. Parallel with it, we have to go to H19, then we will go to the Surya, and the value 68 is the value which is of TC value of a Panch Mahabhut, Prithvi, Apa, Agni, Vayu, and Akash. And it is going to be Chit, Yoni, Mrit, Amrit, the living and non-living features of existence phenomenon, or as One is conscious, and it is the consciousness base. It is Lord Krishna's consciousness as base of the intelligence, which is the end fruit. Thank you very much. आप कल आए भाग गए